Good day everyone, I am TURA, and for today, I will be discussing to you another method of assessing the student's performance known as portfolio assessment. In here, we will be tackling about the definition of portfolio and portfolio assessment, how these assess the student's performance, and also I will be discussing to you the difference between portfolio assessment and portfolio collection. So what comes into your mind when you hear the word portfolios? That's right. Portfolios are the collection of projects and works of students that exemplify skills, attitude, and interest within a certain period of time. In other words, these are the compilation of students' best work and materials which are essential to assess learning progress or achievement. Portfolio comes in many forms. It can be form notebook filled with documents, notes, or it can be a physical collection of students' work such as written assignment, journals, completed tests, artwork, lab reports, and projects such as dioramas and models. It can also be a digital archive which is very prominent today in online learning, and example of this is presentation, blogs, websites that features the same materials as physical portfolios or the usual portfolios. Portfolios can also be presented publicly or privately to parents, teachers, and community members as part of demonstration of learning exhibition or capstone project. Take note that there are many different types of portfolio in education, and each has its own purposes. And some of those purposes are only intended to evaluate learning progress and achievement in a specific courses, and some purposes are intended to assess learning in a specific subject, and also some purposes are intended to evaluate acquisition of skills which we can use in our field of study, music and arts, and physical education and health. So portfolio is important because it can be a form of educational evidences which are assembled for a purpose such as evaluating learning progress. When evaluating learning progress, it can be an indicator whether the student have met the learning standards, and teachers on the other hand can use them to adopt instructional strategies when the result of evidences shows that students either are or not learning. Portfolio can also help students reflect on their academic goals and progress as learners, because portfolio can be a basis if the students have improved as learners over the course of time. Portfolio can also create a lasting archive of academic work, product, and accomplishment. Another is portfolio improve communication between the teacher and students. Why? Because teachers become informed about the education and learning progress of the students, and by means of this, it can make a beneficial effect on academic achievement and long-term students' outcome. Let's proceed with portfolio assessment. Portfolio assessment is systematic, longitudinal collection of student work created in response to a specific known instructional objective and evaluated in relation to same criteria. This is according to Ference 2001. To put it simply, portfolio assessment are collection of students' work that are accompanied with the standards that we, the teachers, required to them to learn or to achieve. This usually gathered over a long period of time for reflection or for the students to reflect what they have learned. Example of this are collection of students' essay, artworks, lab reports, and reading logs. So the main purpose of portfolio assessment is for the students to reflect their own performances, show their weak and strong domain, and for the student to see their learning or working progress during the learning process. It also encourages students to take responsibilities for their own learning. We have also here students' portfolio, which is defined as purposeful collection of student work that exhibits the student's effort, progress and achievement in one or more areas. So this portfolio is much effective when we aim to evaluate students' learning progress and achievement, and when we are aiming to document and evaluate the knowledge and skills and also the working habits that the students use. We should take note that student portfolio is not a compilation of previous work of a student over a period of time, but it should contain a purposeful selected sample of student work. Kumbaga, ito yung mga activity na pili lang, hindi yung lahat na pinagawa throughout the teaching process. These are only selected working sample which has a purpose, such as, for example, choosing samples that will showcase the best work of the students to highlight lang the progress of the students which have made in a particular period of time. So that is students' portfolio. Meanwhile, we have also suggested steps for portfolio assessment. Number 1 is to determine the purpose of the portfolio. Teachers should decide how the outcome of the portfolio evaluation will be used to inform the course. Number 2 is to identify the learning outcome. So when planning to implement a portfolio requirement, the teacher needs to modify first activities that are aligned to the learning outcomes of the courses. Also, decide what the student will include in the portfolio. And number 4, establish a scoring criteria in order to judge the quality of the portfolio and for the student to make it as support and guidance as to how they will showcase their portfolio. Now, let's discuss the difference between portfolio assessment and portfolio collection. So, in portfolio collection, the question na itatatak natin sa ating isipan is, why am I collecting evidences? So, what's the purpose of collecting these evidences? And it can be for representative skill, for areas of development, to know areas of development, for demonstrated ability, for conferencing, and it can be also for reporting. While in portfolio assessment, the question naman is, how am I using the evidence? Or, anong gagawin natin sa evidence na doon? So, that is it can be to offer the next level, to promote development, to document ability, to modify instruction, or also, it can be to adapt curriculum. Let me repeat. In portfolio collection, the question is, why am I collecting evidences? While in portfolio assessment, how am I using the evidences? It is critical in portfolio assessment to know how to differentiate assessment model and portfolio collection to much improve and monitor the performance of the students within the classroom. I hope that you have gained meaningful learnings during my discussion, and if you have any question with regards to my discussion, feel free to private message me. Thank you for watching and keep safe.
Good day everyone, I am JERICK UBAC, and under the Unit 4, the subtopic that was assigned to me is all about the comparison of traditional form of assessment and portfolio assessment. Ano ba yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa? Una, alamin muna natin what is traditional assessment. Sa traditional assessment, these are tests taken with paper and pencil. Take note of that. The traditional assessment are tests taken with paper and pencil that are usually true or false, matching type, multiple choice, essays, or short answers. This assessment are easy to grade. Madali lang siya ma-determine to grade because halimbawa sa multiple choice, 1/30, nakakuha ka ng example 25, madali lang yon na i-compute to test the ability of the student. But it only tests isolated applications, facts, or memorized data at lower level thinking skills. Lower level thinking skills ang kailangan sa traditional form of assessment. While dito naman tayo sa portfolio assessment. Yung portfolio assessments are not a type of assessment item. but rather a compilation of student work. Portfolio assessment asks the students or teachers to collect work products that show growth over a specific period of time. Kumbaga dito naman sa portfolio assessment, na ibibigay yung activities sa mga students ng kumbaga meron ng variety sets of activities or tasks na ibinibigay sa students, and then sinasagutan nila ito at nakikita yung progress at yung growth ng students over a specific period of time. Sa traditional assessment naman, what are the common tools na ginagamit sa traditional form of assessment? Papasok na dyan nga yung sinasabi ko na multiple choice, true or false test, short answers, and essay. Example, doon na sa true or false, ang true or false kasi, di ba, dalawa lang naman, true or false. It is an item requires the students to make decision and find out which of two potential responses is true. Parang sa traditional assessment, parang it is a type of assessment na nasa lower level. Tapos, ano ba yung characteristic ng traditional assessment? As we can see, the focus of traditional assessment is directed to the product of the assessment rather than the learning process. Kumbaga, sa traditional form of assessment, nafo-focus yung magiging result ng given activity ng teachers sa student. Kumbaga, halimbawa sa multiple choice, 1 to 30, nakafocus yung magiging result o yung number of correct items na nakuha ng bata kesa doon sa learning process. Being summative, focusing on the final product, the same lang yon nung unang explanation. Expecting standardized answer, pare-parehas ang sagot kumbaga sa traditional form of assessment, doon sa multiple choice or sa other types of assessment na pasok sa traditional assessment, meron tayong na tinatawag na key to correction. Kaya we are expecting standardized answers, and having feedback based on our grades are not the only characteristics of this old paradigm of assessment. Yung old paradigm of assessment is traditional form of assessment. In short, sa traditional form of assessment, parang it-test the ability of the students or a student at one time. While sa portfolio assessment, based from the different activities na binigay sa kanya, inaansiran niya to. Kung sa traditional one shot, parang one shot kung tawagin, dito sa portfolio assessment, documented yung progress ng bata or ng estudyante. Para bang continuous learning kahit na ongoing yung assessment doon sa portfolio assessment. While sa traditional assessment, nakafocus siya sa magiging result ng specific given activity ng teacher. Diba? Gets? So, sa portfolio assessment, remember na documented yung progress ng bata while continuous ang learning kahit ongoing yung assessment. Portfolio assessment pa rin yun. Sa traditional, one shot lang na ginagawang activity, parang i-test na yung ability ng isang estudyante. So, that is the big or the comparison between the portfolio assessment and traditional form of assessment. Para sa portfolio assessment, yung variety, nasasagutan nyo ng bata for over a specific period of time. Documented ang progress, continuous ang learning kahit na ongoing ang assessment ng bata. So, that is the topic that was assigned to me. I hope that you've gained lots of ideas on my report. Thank you and good morning.
Hello everyone, I am CHARMANE Thomas. Today is a new day for another lesson and to learn new things. For today's discussion, our topic is all about 3 types and uses of portfolios. Now, let's come up with the types and their definition. First is the working portfolio, which is also known as teacher-student portfolio. The first type of portfolio, and based on its name, it is a project at work. It contains the work in progress as well as the finished sample of students' work to reflect the activities done by the teacher and the students. It documents the stages of learning and provide a progressive record of the students' growth. Also here, in working portfolio, we can diagnose the student's need. So, here in the working portfolio, this contains all the activities that the child doing inside the classroom. It could be graded and it could be the draft or it could be anything that the student is doing inside the classroom. So, kahit ano pong mga activities na ginagawa ng mga bata sa loob ng classroom ay nilalagay po doon sa kanyang portfolio hanggang matapos ang taon ng pasukan. To make it short, it contains various student work art products. This is used to help teacher reflect the strength and the weaknesses growth of the student. So, in this working portfolio, these are the work examples are chosen by both teacher and students. Also, it highlights the ongoing process of learning, not just the finished product. Second is the showcase portfolio. It is known the best work portfolio or display portfolio. It is also focuses on the student best and most creative work, and it exhibits the best performance of the students. For example, it is a special program in the curriculum wherein visual arts students showcase their best portrait painting. This might be to highlight student success or to showcase a variety of accomplishment a student has achieved over a period of time. In showcasing a student work, this portfolio allows them to describe and tell their own story. So, the purpose of the showcase portfolio, it is the best work or awarding winning based on the student must be displayed. Lastly, the progress portfolio. It is also known as teacher alternative assessment portfolio. It contains example of students' work where the same type done over a period and they are utilized to assist their progress. It is used to observe progress which still contains student work but are already being evaluated and scored by their teachers. So, in this type of portfolio, all the work of students are recorded, rated, ranked, or evaluated. So, for example, you are teaching the student ABC, so the first try you have to document it and they have to grade it, and you have to grade it. Second try, third try, until the student can perfect the writing of the alphabet. So, you can see the same work but being documented according to stages, according to the process, according to progress, day 1, day 2, or day 3. Teachers can keep the individual student portfolio that is solely for teachers' uses as an assessment tool. This is a focus type of portfolio that is model of the holistic approach to assessment because in here we can really see that the student is really progressing. Now, let's figure it out what are the uses of portfolio. And these are the following. First is that portfolio can be provide both formative and summative opportunities for monitoring progress toward reaching identified outcomes. Second, portfolios can communicate detailed information about what is expected of student in terms of the content and quality of performances in a specific curriculum. A portfolio allows students to document the aspect of learning that do not show up well in traditional assessments. Fourth, portfolios are useful to showcase periodic or end-of-the-year accomplishment of students such as poetry reflections and growth samples of best work, among others. Fifth, portfolios may also be used to facilitate communication between teachers and parents regarding their child's achievement and progress in a certain period. 6. The administrators may also use portfolios for national competency testing to grant high school credit to evaluate educational programs. Lastly, portfolios will be assembled for a combination of purposes such as instructional enhancement and progress documentation. A teacher reviews student portfolios for uniquely and makes notes for revising instruction for next year use. So, thank you. That's all for today. Have a nice day.
Purposes of different types of portfolio. Purpose of a working portfolio, purpose of a showcase portfolio, and purpose of a progress portfolio. Working portfolio. A work portfolio is a collection of work samples that shows your capabilities to prospective employers. Job seekers might have an online portfolio, a paper portfolio, or both. A work portfolio shows potential employers actual evidence of your accomplishments, talents, and abilities. It demonstrates the breadth and depth of your expertise and training. A portfolio is necessary to gain a job in most creative areas, including writing, web, design, graphic design, advertising, photography, and videography. If you're expected to do innovative work in a new position, your boss will want to go over and evaluate your previous project performance. It's still a chance to differentiate out in industries where portfolio isn't anticipated. You could wish to attach slides, photographs, or examples from previous work. Of course, make certain that you are not releasing private material without authorization. If you're unsure whether you need a portfolio, evaluate your subject and the tangible products you produce over the course of your career. Anything you've generated that demonstrate your work, talents should be included in your portfolio. If you're still not convinced, ask others in your area if they utilized a portfolio. So, the key idea is that the working portfolio is a personal archive that compiles not just the best, samples, and most important experiences or courses, but also various personally significant milestones that illustrates your development. Showcase portfolio. Showcase portfolios are intended to showcase a learner's greatest work. This might be to emphasize student success or to highlight a range of accomplishment a student has achieved throughout time. This portfolio, through exhibiting a student's work, allows them to explain and convey their own story. Creating this sort of portfolio needs originality and imagination. A showcase portfolio for a teacher would include coursework and projects, whereas a portfolio for a job interview would showcase abilities and qualifications. This is why, while building these displays portfolios, it is critical to keep the audience in mind. Students are sometimes urged to keep portfolio designs consistent since a certain school may mandate that all portfolios have comparable characteristics for uniformity. There is a fairness element among the compilers in this scenario. Breaking from the usual, on the other hand, often demonstrate innovation and makes each display more fascinating and personal. There are a lot of benefits of a showcase portfolio. A showcase portfolio is a professional way of showcasing your best work, whether it be for your teacher, school, or employer. The idea of audience appeal and audience pleasing comes more into play with showcase portfolios. Students are able to creative in the way they highlight their work and skills. Since students are selecting their best work, they are making the best impressions of themselves for others to see. Their personality is highlighted based on the way they choose the design, layout, and what to display. Showcasing and presenting work allows students to reflect and speak about their learning as questions are asked. Having a display gives student accountability to always do their work so that they have a lot of choice when thinking about what to showcase. Students can increase their online presence and be visible so that others can get the best glimpse of their work. Having an electronic showcase portfolio means that students can keep adding to their work. Since showcase portfolios show only one's best work, the reflection process requires a greater depth and perceptions than other types of portfolio. Overall, showcase portfolios are designed to display a learner's best quality of work. This might be to highlight students' success or to showcase variety of accomplishments. Progress portfolio. Lastly, a progress portfolio's purpose. A progress portfolio demonstrates how someone is or has progressed. Essentially, it demonstrates development. Portfolios may help students reflect on where they started a course, how they developed, and where they ended up at the end of the school year, since they show learning progressions across time. Progress portfolio can be constructed to highlight student progress or current achievements. Audio records of English language learners speaking, for example, may be gathered throughout a year to illustrate learning progress. Multiple versions of a single piece of work may be also included in student progress portfolio. So the purpose of progress portfolios contain multiple examples of the same type of work done over time and are used to assess progress. If cognitive processes are intended for assessment, content and rubrics must be designed to capture those processes. Overall, portfolio assessments can provide both formative and summative opportunities for monitoring progress toward reaching identified outcomes. Portfolio evaluations allow students to reflect on their group performances, to illustrate their weak and strong domains, and to track students' development throughout the learning process. It also encourages students to take responsibility of their own learning. By setting criteria for content and outcomes, portfolios can communicate concrete information about what is expected of students in terms of the content and quality of performance in specific curriculum areas, while also providing a way of assessing their progress along the way. Depending on content and criteria, portfolios can provide teachers and researchers with information relevant to the cognitive process that students use to achieve academic outcomes. Thank you. So, these are the purposes of different types of portfolio. I am Irish Rain Bisan 1, 3rd year BPED. Thank you for listening.
Good day everyone, I am REYMARK NAVA and I'm here to discuss the topic about the advantages of portfolio. There's a lot of advantages of portfolio, but there's also disadvantages in it. Now, let us first discuss the advantages of portfolio. So the first advantages of portfolio is it is combined the strength of performance assessment with a continuous record of achievement. It can hold students accountable for mastering standard content in subject areas. It also offers students tangible evidences to show their academic achievements. Portfolio can give students an alternate avenue to show documentation of their skills. In addition, it also uses to know if the students have a basic skills and in problem solving and collaborative skills. Second advantages of portfolio is that it engages students in a self-evaluation and reflection that can lead to goal setting and encourage and support critical thinking skills that will require students to continuously reflect and perform self-evaluation of their works. And teachers should convey to the student the purpose of portfolio on how to establish quality work and how it will be graded in order to the student to work their portfolio using a clear criteria to identify their strengths and weaknesses in doing it, and also to monitor their work as well. Portfolio involves students to collaborative assessment, and it also promotes communication between teachers and students, because some shy students who fail to initiate conversation within a classroom benefits from a one-on-one interaction with the teachers, while other students enjoy talking about their accomplishments. And during conferences or discussions, students can discuss their progress, ask questions, and receive suggestions and strategies for improving their works. Communication with peers and parents also helps students in meaningful reflection and goal setting. Another advantages of portfolio is to integrate assessment with learnings and focus on self-improvement as well as students' motivation. Portfolio permits individualized assessment and enhance students' motivation, and some students are not good test takers, and portfolio offers them as an alternative to demonstrate their mastery on subject content. Numerous work samples can show students moving from basic to advanced skills, demonstrating continued learning growth because portfolio are individualized. Students and teachers have the opportunity to choose the documents or anything they want to include in their portfolio and to make decisions about how to improve the students' works. Another advantages of portfolio is it contains examples of students' works such as it reinforces the importance of performance assessment and provide evidences of learning for diagnosing learning difficulties, providing individual feedback, and explaining progress to parents. And portfolio also flexible, especially in digital ones. And that's the advantages of portfolio. And let's also discuss some of the disadvantages of portfolio. The first disadvantages of portfolio is basically the scoring. Because the scoring is a very time consuming and it is not consistent. It can be time consuming for the teachers to organize and evaluate the content of every portfolios, as well as it is not consistent because the criteria is too general and the raters are untrained because the raters itself are the students. They are not trained enough to grade or evaluate and how to judge or critics one's work. Second disadvantages is it needs time and resources. It needs time and resources to design and review the content as well as to score it. Students need to fully understand the purpose and structure of portfolio, decide which samples to collect, and self-reflect. Some of this time needs to be conducted in one-on-one discussion and reviewing and evaluating the portfolio out of the class time is also enormously time consuming. Another disadvantages is that it is potential for limited generalization. It is because evidence of competency is had for each learning targets being evaluated. Requiring students to have their own portfolio in class will help them to know more about the things so they can still improve. It may cost money to create one, but what matters is the improvement and it will give you when you make one. Here are some tips in making one. When you are making your portfolio, don't forget to gather every documents from the first to the last, as well as gather resources that can help you to improve your portfolio. Another is have your trusted friend to look at your portfolio and check if there is an error, typos, and places you can improve before submitting it. Lastly, make sure to start early as you can. Don't do it in the very last minute because I believe in saying that by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Thank you and hope you learned something from what I have discussed.
And now, let's go on to developing portfolio assessment. Actually, there are 8 basic steps in developing portfolio assessment system. The process of developing portfolio assessment was adapted from the article written by Charlotte Denelson and Leslie Auretin. Since portfolio entries represent a type of performance, these steps resemble the principles for developing good performance assessment. The first one is determine the curricular objectives to be addressed through the portfolio. In here, syempre portfolio dito nakakompile yung mga learnings ng isang estudyante. So in this, dapat magbibigay ka ng portfolio where naka-specify kung what is the curricular objectives na kailangan ini-expect mo doon sa students. For example, the curricular objectives na kailangan na gusto mong makita doon sa loob ng portfolio ng student is about basketball. So, ang nakaloob dapat doon is about basketball. Walang ibang nakahalong iba. Kasi, that is what you expect from that portfolio. The second one is, determine the decisions that will be made based on the portfolio assessment. Will the assessment be used for high skate assessment or a certain level of schooling? So, in this, syempre sa portfolio, madidetermine mo dito if that student excel or nagfo-fall siya in a certain activity or yung learning niya, doon mo syempre mabibase kung, oy wow, that student learned, that student may kulang pa siyang kaalaman because doon mo yun mabibase kasi babasahin mo talaga yun or titignan mo, kikilitisin mo. So, merong iba-iba kasing portfolio assessment. Siyempre, nakakompile ito yung formative, nakakompile ito yung summative assessment. I think, most especially, ang pinaka-importante pa naman talaga yung summative assessment kasi dito, check mo talaga whether that student excel or whether that student learned. So, makikita mo talaga dito if that student is eligible to from transition from its grade level to hanggang sa kung saan na siya susunod. Because as what we know, dapat ang assessment is developmentally appropriate. Dito mababase talaga kung that student is eligible siya maging grade 2 from grade 1. Siyempre, makikita mo yun sa kanya kung paano talaga niya gawa yung kanyang mga activities. Next is, design assessment task for a curricular objectives. Ensure that the task matches instructional intentions and adequately represents the content and skills, including the appropriate level of difficulty for the student are expected to attain. These considerations will ensure the validity of the assessment task. So the assessment that you will be going to give should be also aligned from your curricular objectives because it is what you expect your student to give or to put in their portfolio. So, kung yung binigay mo is about basketball, so the assessment that you're going to give to your student should also revolve within basketball. For example, types, your student should demonstrate the different skills in basketball. So, yun yung expected mo sa kanila na ibibigay niya sa'yo to be put in their portfolio. Define the criteria for each assessment task and establish performance standards for each criterion. This may take from the form of rating scale, rubrics, or checklist. You should decide whether you're going to use is holistic or analytic rubrics. So it is very important syempre na all of the assessment tasks na ibibigay mo should be based or pag mag-evaluate ka should always be based from a rubrics para walang bias and mabigyan mo talaga ng grade based from the rubrics. Kasi ang pangit naman na magbibigay ka ng grade based from your assumptions. Oh, maganda to. Ang ganda ng pagkakagawa. Pero, maganda yung pagkakasulat pero hindi siya pasok dun sa rubrics. So, yun, yung kahalagahan ng rubrics. So, magbalik tayo sa rubrics. Determine who will evaluate the portfolio entries. Will they be teachers from the student's own school, teachers from other school, or does the state identity and train evaluators? I think in this, ang evaluator lang din naman is yung teacher na nagbigay ng assessment task. But also, it varies. Kasi for example, ang binigay mong assessment task sa students mo is about first aid. Paano mo re-ratean yun kung hindi ka naman marunong sa first aid? Paano mo i-rate yung student mo if hindi ka naman, wala kang certificate that you are a registered first aider? So, it is much appropriate if ipapacheck mo or ipapa-evaluate mo yon sa registered first aider or someone who is working in the government na align sa first aid such PDRRM, MDRRM, or even the Red Cross. So, ang mahalaga dito is mayroong coordination from school to their agencies para walang conflict. Train teachers or other evaluators to score the assessment. This will ensure the reliability of the assessment. So, yun nga, last semester, nag-trade kami ng first aid and swimming because it need siya for us na mga PE, soon to be PE educator kasi may mga core contents sa curriculum namin na yan, swimming and first aid and iba-iba pa. So, pag naging teacher kami, paano namin maa-assess yung gawa ng student namin if kami, hindi kami marunong, if kami, hindi kami certified na first aider or nakapagtapos or nakapag-train man lang sa swimming, 'di ba? So it is very important pa din na ang mag-e-evaluate talaga is a trained, and also by the use of technology, maraming webinars and other trainings na masasabi ko talagang mostly ang mga teachers ngayon and other educators are already competent to evaluate yung mga sinasubmit ng kanilang mga students. Teach the curriculum, administer assessment, and collect them in portfolios or score assessment. So, create a student instructions that specify how student collect, select, reflect, format, and submit. It should emphasize the students the purpose of the portfolio and that is their responsibility to select items that clearly demonstrate mastery of learning outcomes. Emphasize the faculty that it is their responsibility to help students by explicitly trying course assignments to portfolio requirements. And the last one, as determined in step number 2, make decisions based on the assessment in the portfolio. So yun nga, magbibigay ka na naman ng assessment in a way na it is already a summative assessment based from the portfolio para ma-determine ng teacher ano yung natutunan nila on the whole quarter. Ano yung natutunan ng student doon sa mga sinubmit nilang portfolio. So, mababase doon talaga na hindi lang ginugal or binasta-basta ng student yung kanilang sinubmit. Kasi matitest mo.
Good morning! So next is the guidelines for assessing portfolios. Here's the guidelines for assessing portfolios. First, include enough documents or items on which to base judgment. Second, structure the contents to provide scoreable information. Third, develop judging criteria and scoring scheme for raters to use in assessing the portfolios. Fourth, use observation instruments such as checklists and reading skills when possible to facilitate scoring. And lastly, use trainable waiters or assessors. As future educators, it is great that we have knowledge about the guidance for assessing portfolios because it can encourage students to take more ownership and responsibility over the learning process since portfolios document learning growth over time. They can help students reflect on where they started the course, how they developed, and where they ended up at the conclusion of the school year. The process of guidelines for assessing portfolios can enable students to reflect their real performance, to show their weak and strong domain, and to observe student progress during the learning process, and encourages students to take responsibilities for their own learning. That's all po for my report. For the next reporter, Miss Catherine Jane L. TEVES.
Good morning, everyone. I am Catherine Jane Teves, and I will be discussing the contents of portfolio. But first, let me briefly discuss what is portfolio. A portfolio is a collection of students' work which gives evidence to show how the students can meet the specified learning outcomes. Okay. What should be on the content of the portfolio? And here it goes. First one is the cover letter. The cover letter also talks about the author. It also cover the letter summarizes the evidence of the students in learning progress. It also include the what should be in the portfolio, that should be showcases, and what is the progress. Next one is table of contents with number of pages. You can see this commonly on every portfolio. Third one is the entries. It is both core and optional. The core elements will be required for each student and will provide a common base from which optional items will allow the folder to represent the uniqueness of each student. Students can choose to include the best pieces of work, but also a piece of work which gave a trouble or one that was less successful and give reasons why. You can identify it. The fourth one is the dates of all entries to facilitate proof of growth over time. The fifth one is the drops of oral and written products and revised revisions. It may be included the first drops and corrective revised versions. You get it? Okay. The last one, and lastly, is the reflections. Reflections can appear at the different stages in learning processes of formative and summative purposes, or it can be written as a mother tongue at the lower levels by the students who find it difficult to express themselves in English. Okay. Moreover, a brief rationale should be discussed and should be included. These can relate to students' performances to their feelings as a learner. Students can choose to reflect upon some of the following. What did I learn from it? What did I do well? Why did I choose the item? What do I want to improve the item? How do I feel about the performances? And what were the problem areas? Another note is you need to specify your portfolio content. Specify what and how much has to be included in the portfolio. Both core and options are included. Specify for each entry should be assessed. Students should be acquainted with the scoring guide ratings, scales, before performing a task. Portfolio entries can take many forms in written, audio, video recorded, items, dialogue, and journals. It is recommended to request a limited number of portfolio entries. And that's all for today, class. Thank you and have a good day.